you don't have to have all the skills. What you learn how to do is ask better questions. And now the AIs ask clarifying questions. So where is it now? We don't have these agents that can do all your work for you, but everyone can have amazing superpowers and be 10 times more effective and more brilliant than they already are.
What is an underrated AI tool or strategy that most entrepreneurs are sleeping on right now?
A tool that you can run 6 AIs at the same time is...
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, where I bring the best and the brightest from the world of business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. My guest today on the podcast is Mike Koenigs. He's a serial entrepreneur with 5 successful exits, a 19-time best-selling author, dynamic speaker who has engaged audiences of thousands. Mike specializes in helping entrepreneurs create impactful, lifestyle-compatible businesses, guiding them in building high-ticket offers, refining messaging, and enhancing their personal brands. With a proven track record of working with major brands like Sony, AT&T, BMW, and 3M, Mike has become a go-to expert for recently exited founders launching their next act companies. As a pioneer in AI, he has shared his insights on prestigious stages, including The Man, Tony Robbins events, MIT, look at this guy, EO conferences, and inspiring audience with his innovative AI systems and strategies. We have a lot to get to, so let's jump into it. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Adam, nice to be here, my friend. Awesome.
That is how we do it. And yes, if anybody watching on video, it says AI behind them. We're going to get to AI. We're going to get to all that stuff here. But we don't know who Mike is. And I find the best way to know who somebody is to really understand where they started. If you don't mind me asking, Mike, what did your parents do for a living?
My mom took care of us 4 kids. My dad's a barber. He grew up poor on a farm in Iowa. And I grew up in a little tiny town called Eagle Lake, Minnesota, with 763 people in it. So basically, my mom was also the lunch lady at a little Catholic school that I went to. So I came from very, very humble beginnings.
I absolutely love it. How did your dad become a barber? How does someone... I'm always interested how someone goes down that path. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Not even a question I have to ask. I'm just curious.
It's a crazy story. So he grew up the youngest boy of 8 kids on a little farm, and he literally escaped a bad uncle who tried to make him work for him for free, and he joined the military. And my dad is really, really handy. So he was the kind of guy who used to go hunting. He could hunt bareback and shoot pheasants and squirrels. He was the best shot I've ever known in my life. Went into the military, became a communications specialist, and while he was there, started cutting hair.
It has to be done. Someone's got to cut the hair.
And he later on in life was known as the fastest flat top and also fastest shaver. He used to win competitions.
Like Edward Scissorhands over there.
Yeah, totally. And on his best day, it was about 5'6". Otherwise, most of the time I know him, he's around 5'5", so he's very short. And he's also a great entertainer, great vocalist and guitarist. And he was like the guy everyone would always say, "Bernie, did you bring your guitar? And did you bring your barber's kit?" So everywhere we went, he was entertaining and cutting hair.
Clips and tunes. I absolutely love it. So let's jump into your career. It's interesting. You're an early adopter and building in the Internet 1.0 era in the 90s, evolved in tech from the start of your career. What was it that drew you to the tech sector? And we're dating ourselves. I mean, listen, I remember I'm turning 46 on Saturday, just to give you a timestamp. So when I was in college, hey, thanks, man. I remember in college getting that first internet connection and the first email address and all that. And that's 1.0. Like, what attracted you?
A friend of mine, his dad worked. So I always loved technology. I started with pinball machines, video games, stereos.
Love pinball.
And I was hanging out and all I wanted to do is write video games. So I taught myself how to code when I was 14. But my first intro to computers really were acoustic coupler modem on this is when little teletypes, they're portable. Texas Instruments had it, and I used a roll of thermal paper, and we got on something called MECC, M-E-C-C, which you could play the Quest. What was that Quest across America?
Carmen Sandiego? No.
Nah, it was even before that.
Oregon Trail?
Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
On a
that one out of my
teletype.
ass.
You'd have to type BANG, talking to a mainframe, and it was an acoustic coupler, which meant you took your phone, you hooked it up to a modem that
My
was
God.
running at 300 baud. So
Jeez.
I was doing way pre-internet. I'm 58, so I've got a couple of years on you.
Yeah, but you
And
were
then
in
from
it.
there, I started building computers, and I started building PCs. That was some of my first business ventures.
Isn't
I
it-
started consulting because my dad talked to an insurance agent and said, my kid likes computers. And he said, can he come over and teach my secretary how to use our new Apple II? So it just propelled from there, and pretty soon I was writing commercial code.
That's so crazy, and I want to talk about Digital Cafe, one of the first digital agencies, and it's interesting. I started my career in digital marketing back when it was marketing, and then also on this thing called digital marketing. Now it's all marketing because it's all digital, but it was so innovative back then because it was the unknown. And it was a shiny object in the room, kind of the way we're going to get to in a little bit, talking about AI, right? It was, and soon, obviously, AI is going to be everything, everywhere, and we're going to stop calling it out, and maybe companies will stop adding AI at the end of their freaking company name, right? To make it different.
Good luck with that.
What was that? Those early days with like the resistance, the headwinds, the tailwinds. Let's hit the rewind button. I'd love to do a little capsule check here.
Yeah. So here's what happened. I was writing code for a company, and we were writing legal software that used to study all the transcripts from legal proceedings. It was sort of like early AI in a way.
LexisNexis kind of stuff.
Yeah, precisely. He used to work with them. And right before that, I wrote video games for one of the first Mac game companies. And I was also had like a MIDI studio at home. So I was experimenting with music and some very early video capture cards and doing animation. So one of my first business partner was a filmmaker. So his name's Dean Hires, his brother John. They had made 5 feature-length science fiction movies before they graduated college. And one of our first gigs we did was for the game company I worked for, PCAI, and we made music videos that would play nonstop in a computer store. And that's how they sold the games. So we made these little adventure things, and I composed the music. They did animation, we did stop motion, and all kinds of stuff.
Groundbreaking.
And yeah, and my wife at the time, I'm remarried now, but she worked at a prep shop, which basically did 4 color separations in the agency days. And the biggest agencies in the world went there, and I used to hang out and pirate software with one of the guys that worked at this place. And one day a guy walked in, and I showed him one of the animations we had created, and he said, I work at this agency. You think you can help us do electronic storyboards? And that soon turned into floppy disk sales presentations, then CD-ROMs. And eventually if you fast forward a little bit, what we were known for is we developed a game called Chex Quest that got shipped in 6 million boxes of General Mills cereal, sponsored by AOL. So this is early.
Right. They were implanting their software, right? They were doing it as a free download, and they put a game on it to make it stickier. I get it.
That's right. And then we did it. I was posting some of the stuff we were making because we were making screensavers and little mini video games that were branded. And someone from 20th Century Fox saw a post on CompuServe, and he reached out to me, and he said, we got a new movie coming out. And it's called Strange Days with Ralph Fiennes. And do you think you could put together like an electronic press kit? We ended up building screensavers and a little mini game that shipped in Rolling Stone magazine. Well, when those two things hit, it was like, you got to understand, you couldn't even put video on a web page quite yet.
Unbelievable. I remember. Unbelievable.
So our early days were CD-ROMs and other products like that, but it ended up evolving into it was like one thing after another. And each time, I mean, there was an enormous amount of resistance that we ran into.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. Like the initial resistance in the market, right? From the old school marketers. Oh, we're only doing, print, video, print and TV and radio. What is this internet thing? What is this devil talk?
It was like we had to explain how the internet worked and then build prototypes. And the people who got it. And when it was in demand, it was in demand. But when we got to show a prototype, we'd walk in and demonstrate how we could create a visualization that wouldn't require a 20-person creative team. And before that, it was always pre-visualization, and we'd compose music. And, we were basically a bunch of weirdo kids who did tech and programming and all the early. Yeah. So it started to snowball, but it wasn't until the big dogs heard of us and saw our work And they're like, you are everywhere. And soon we became the secret weapon of some of the top agencies in the world at that time. Eventually we got bought by $1 billion a year advertising agency. Basically meant they're keeping 150 million of that or more, because in the days, the way agencies got paid is they took 15% of an ad spend. But they really did work with us because they couldn't catch up. They didn't have a bunch of weirdos who are like a combination of musicians, filmmakers,
creatives, right?
Hackers, programmers, game developers. It's like the only reason I could do it is because I grew up kind of poor and I started doing it when I was a kid.
You figured it out. You from an early age, you were always trying to figure it out. What was that first exit like? Did you think that was going to be your final act at the time?
No, here's what happened. It was kind of a triple tap. So the agency that bought us was the biggest agency in Minneapolis at the time. Campbell Methuen Esty was the name. They were owned by a group called the Interpublic Group. And they really initially wanted to acquire us because they didn't want us to work with any other agencies. They wanted exclusives and we wouldn't do them. And that started a snowball effect. And basically what the deal was, and I can talk about it now, but they wanted to acquire us and make us part of their main organization.
They wanted to absorb you into the,
Yeah, and also buy our book of business because we're working with BMW and we were winning deals with clients they had, and they weren't getting the deals. So we became we became a high quality problem. So we got a high
quality problem. I've never heard that before. I'm going to put that in my. I prefer to be a high quality problem than a low quality problem.
That's a writer downer.
Yeah.
So we
downer.
negotiated a deal, and part of it was we got to retain some equity. And one day I came back to work right after the acquisition, and my new boss, first of all, said, you can hire, you can buy anything you want, you got an open checkbook. And the first thing that happened is I froze up because we were scraping by. Even though we had all these high profile clients, we're constantly growing, and some of these big organizations pay in 100 days.
Yeah.
Well,
payroll
hard
stuff.
to run a $2 million a year business when
net
you got
100
no cash
is
flow,
tough.
Right? It sucked. And then eventually all the agency people, they couldn't understand our culture and they tried to convert us. So one day the boss said to me, you don't have to come to work anymore. You can just get paid. And
what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, it was basically, go away, little boy, we got this. And what subsequently happened is what we really found out is it was right around it was right before it's 1999 when we exited. And what they were really doing is they were going to IPO us and they wanted to get rid of us. And we still had the ability to approve all hires and we owned a chunk of the business. So we were on a buyout plus cash up front. So we got enough cash where I had money for the first time in my life. It was a multi-7-figure deal. Yeah. It wasn't so big that I could quit and retire, but it was enough so I was debt-free. I lived on a houseboat on the Mississippi River. I could travel, and I was good.
It wasn't true FU money, but it was getting you there.
Yeah, it felt comfortable, and I also had a legendary reputation at the time, so there were a lot of opportunities. But bottom line is, we caught them on a technicality, and they paid us to go away twice. How's that sound? And that's when I started just consulting, advising, and really doing hardcore internet copywriting.
What was your thoughts about your first next act?
Oh, so what happened after that? So this is right during the .com thing, and everyone had an idea. Everyone was doing IPOs. And the truth is, I was too immature to really understood it. I was so focused on what we were capable of doing. I didn't know how to think as big as they did, even though from my point of view, it felt fraudulent. But what happened was I was starting to get paid ungodly sums of money to just be an advisor.
Isn't that nice?
And it was weird because I was making so much money for a little while, and I spent all of it because I had money socked away.
Well, if you don't have money and then you finally get money, you don't know what the hell to do with it, right? Like that's always happens. Almost textbook.
I did what every kid does who gets a whole bunch of money real fast and doesn't know what to do with it. Yeah. And then
wait, what toy? What was the first toy that you bought? What was the first big boy toy?
Oh, okay, yeah. So I got a BMW convertible, a motorcycle, and a VW Westfalia.
Boom.
So a camper wagon.
Yeah.
and a really, really nice bicycle. And so I started traveling.
Toys are here.
Yeah.
But you earned them, man. You paid your dues.
It was great. But I would have burned through all that cash. And I actually was burning through the cash, even though I was earning, because I didn't have any level of professional management around me. And I didn't have the maturity to listen. So I've always been a great earner. I wasn't a great saver. And from there, I discovered people like Dan Kennedy and some of the original copywriting geniuses.
Why didn't Kennedy fame, right?
Oh my God. Legendary and a lot of the original big copywriters. And I started figuring out how to adapt copy to the web. And I also figured out how to hack websites and do automated SEO.
Interesting. So now you have this idea about the next act, and you're consulting now. And when did it start organically when you were talking to other founders? I mean, we're talking, the turn of the century. Gee, I can't believe I'm saying that. Like, we're talking the turn of the century when there was, before the bubble burst, but we're still in the big internet era. And there was a lot of people making a lot of money in exits and acquisitions and everything. And there was young folks who were trying to figure out their next act. And you were one of the first ones to have a big next act. What did that guidance look like? What was your framework for guidance? But more importantly, I assume you listened first.
Yeah. Well, let me give you the mini journey in between, because it'll put the pieces together. Because my next act is, as I created 2 software companies. One was called Traffic Geyser. One was called Instant Customer. So there were a couple exits in between. And then I also started creating information products. So I created a product called the Internet Infomercial Toolkit, which was me adapting the television infomercial to work online before there was a YouTube.
The first ads, remember banner ads, click ads, all those things.
All that. And so I had several more subsequent companies I built and sold. But what led to your next act was my next company after that was called You Everywhere Now, where I figured out how to effectively hack Amazon when KDP started, and how to write books really fast, publish them real fast, become bestsellers. And we also taught people how to speak and how to create their own information products. Basically, I taught other people how to do what I wanted to do, who wanted to build long-term platforms. We're doing podcasting back in the early days.
Well, what I love about that is, pause for a second there, right? We talk about the gold rush too. The people that made all the money were the ones selling the picks and shovels and axes.
It's precisely right. Precisely. That's really what Traffic Geyser and Instant Customer were. We taught people how to make money online. We created a product called Main Street Marketing Machines, how to create and launch your own digital marketing agency and make $10,000 a month. That was the promise. And our stuff actually worked. So after going through that cycle, I had cancer in 2012 and just about died, and just about lost my body, my brain, my marriage, my relationship with my only kid, and the business. I mean, it was like my oncologist said, I own your ass literally and figuratively for a year and a half. I had colorectal cancer, by the way.
Nice.
So that's when I really started looking within and just got a taste of mortality. And I talked to, at the time, my greatest coach, who still is Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach. And he gave me some advice. He said, why don't you talk to some founders? Because I asked him, what do you think I should do next? And he said, go out and meet with 8 or 10 founders of companies and ask them 3 questions. What are the dangers that are facing you? He calls it DOS. All the dangers that you face right now. What are the opportunities that you have? And then what are your key strengths, or what he calls your unique ability? I call them your superpower. And he said, after talking to 6, 8, 10 founders, you're going to know exactly what you should do next. And that was your next act. I realized that most founders reach a point in their careers where they don't feel like they spend all their time in their unique ability or superpower. They have really great ideas, but they don't feel like they can innovate and evolve at the speed that they are. They can't carry their teams around. They want to do something that's high net, low overhead, fewest moving parts. And that evolved into what we call the Superpower Accelerator. So now we create, build, and launch brands in a week that are high net, low overhead, fewest moving parts based on your superpower.
Interesting. How do you identify someone's superpower?
So, like, if I were asking you that right now, I'd ask you, Adam, if you could tell me what You believe your unique capability, what your greatest superpower is that people comment on. You know yourself, they see in you. And if you could spend 95% of your time doing that thing, knowing that you could make as much money and be rewarded however you want to be, what would that be? What comes to your mind?
Yeah, I mean,
What is yours?
I am a connection conduit. I'm a super connector. I connect opportunities, whether it be through recruiting, through the recruiting business, or whether on my podcast where I connect and open up opportunities and foster relationships and developments. I would double down on that all day long. And that's why I have a recruiting business and I have a podcasting business.
I love it. So if we were going to dig a little bit further into that, I'd ask you a series of questions and dive into, again, your dangers, your opportunities, your superpowers and strengths, and find out where you have the greatest levels of success. And we develop an offer that's 10 times more than you've ever asked for in your life. So if I asked you right now, and you don't have to answer this, but if I said, what's the biggest deal you've ever done? It's the biggest check that's ever been written to you or one of your companies.
Yeah, it'd be low six figures. Yeah.
Great. So my objective would be to design a 7-figure offer where you would be creating massive relationships. So you'd build the credibility stack, you'd build the hook, ideally a best-selling book, build the authority branding around that, and an offer, and find the greatest whales you could go after. So you got to go whale hunting, but you've got to have whales come to you. You can't be chasing them.
You got to have the right bait and the right hook, right?
That's right. With the whales get scared and run away from you if you're chasing them. But if you know how to attract them and show some value, you can create amazing conversations. And that's just effectively the experience.
The podcast has been my greatest bait.
Oh, yeah.
And I talk about it very openly. It's a not so secret Trojan horse for relationship development. I mean, you and I are connected right now. Who knows where our relationship is going to go after the show, right? And that is a Trojan horse that I speak about all the time. And the other part you talk about too is, how to help entrepreneurs with this identity crisis, right? They exit out and then they're like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's next. I was only that company was me. I was that company. I started. It was my baby. It was everything. And now I don't know what. How do you work through the identity crisis?
That's a great question. So it's interesting you use that framing. We always call it, we're creating an upgraded operating system or identity. So first of all, we craft the likable character. So really what we're doing is we're crafting a hero's journey. And so it's classic Joseph Campbell. Once upon a time, there was someone just like you who tried and failed to achieve their greatest purpose and their greatest mission and goal. And along came a wizard who offered to show him the way, but instead you ignored and walked around and failed again before you came back to the wizard and said, help me, Obi-Wan. And the wizard showed you the way, taught you the powers of the Force, and brought you to the promised land. It's the greatest story ever told. So the answer to the identity crisis, I'll tell you what I do. When we're doing what we call the Superpower Accelerator, it's 3 days where we go through a process and figure out the mindset of that great warrior, and we figure out the market they wish to pursue, in other words, the great whales, the model or the offer that creates massive value, and then the message that needs to be told. In other words, what's the Bible? What's the transcript? But after constructing this and building a framework, which is usually a pitch deck, think of it like a 30-minute TED Talk, we sit in studio just like we are right now, and you perform as that character that is fully authentic to your true essence and being, living inside your superpower as though it's always been. And that 3 days is the strongest form of therapy or transformation. And we literally can take someone who doesn't feel like they can think big, living into a different identity, an upgraded operating system, and they'll walk out and close 6 and 7 figure, in some cases 9-figure deals within months.
Wow, it's powerful.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Let's shift gears a little bit. I want to try to get to a bunch of things here about your journey, and you're an expert on so many levels here. We're going to talk about AI automation and the future of work here. In this segment, I call AI automation the future of work. New segment, just made that up. Quick history lesson for everybody here. AI is not new. Machine learning is not new. LLM is not new. I mean, we're talking back to, keep me straight here, 50s and 60s, military creating this stuff. Give everyone a very quick 60-second history lesson of where it started and where we're at today.
Okay, say that where AI is today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I would look at it like this. The earliest days is basically in the 70s. A guy named Marvin Minsky and a whole group from MIT started working on this. And I actually studied Lisp. That was one of the first languages. And, you know, when ChatGPT came around, it was the first really good interface, and all the technology gods made what we have right now possible, right? So I think, you know, we've all had phones, and every device we have is some kind of machine learning built into it. It's just someone made a really good interface, which is the chat interface, which we've all, you know, you think about mobile phones and the iPhone.
That's how we engage. That's a UX, UI.
Totally.
Yep.
It's so stupid, easy, brilliant.
But it's conversational. It's built on the most core human elements of conversation. You're just conversing with a machine versus a human.
It is relational, right? It's like, it's engaging and relational. It's the fabric of what humans really are. And I also think of AI as the greatest first draft partner you can ever have. So I'll tell you a story of something that just happened yesterday. You know who Dave Asprey is, right? From Bulletproof Coffee and all that. So yesterday we spent a day together, and he came in and he said, I want you to just show me all the latest stuff that's going on with AI right now.
Show me everything.
I promise it's the best way to answer the question. So, and he brought his number one, and I asked him, if you could walk away from our experience today feeling like you have an 11 on a scale 1 to 10, what do you need to experience, know, do, or have? And they're like, well, we need to automate our marketing, and we want to find out how we can use agents. I want to be able to consult or have someone who can swallow up all my data and give me recommendations when I'm having meetings with my teams. And, you know, they just gave me a whole laundry list of things. And also, we've got support issues. Sometimes we can get 10,000 tickets in a week. Now, how do we manage this? So all I did is I just went through and built little automations. So the first thing we did that lit them up is, Dave is funny, and he's got a new brand called Danger Coffee. So I used ChatGPT 401 with deep research, which is arguably at this moment, I think, about the best.
It's funny that you're saying that. My buddy Mike, who's a big nerd, just dropped that on me the other day with some information that we were talking about. He said, deep research on top of 4.0, you're cooking with fire.
It's totally nuts. So here's the prompt I fed in that really lit him up. I typed in, and you know who the Harmon brothers are? The guys who did like Poo-Pourri ads, the purple mattress ad, the funniest online viral commercials that have sold hundreds of millions, maybe billions of dollars worth of products. And if you try to write one of their scripts, first of all, you got to be like, for sure, a comedian and a great copywriter, and it's hard. So what I did is I just grabbed a bunch of Dave's stuff. And the way we did that is we used Google's latest product, Notebook LM, which is, you can just put in 300 pieces of content and it'll answer any questions. It's like your own private AI. So we fed it all of Dave's wisdom and knowledge, and then I had it spit out. I talked to Notebook LM to get effectively like a laundry list of everything about his new brand, and I spit that into ChatGPT, and I said, I want you to write a Harmon Brothers style script about Danger Coffee and Dave Asprey. Make it funny, make fun of the competition, and make it super engaging with some of Dave's best quotes and quirks. So out pops really good script.
With like 30 seconds.
That one took about 10 minutes when you use deep research.
Right, so because it was also pulling in the content, right? So it needed to ingest as well. Got it, yep.
Everything. And it researched all of his top competitors by name, okay? And then came up with some fake names. So then I grabbed that script and I put it in another product called InVideo.ai. It is probably the best synthetic video generator. So put it in there, and about 10, 15 minutes later, out pops an unbelievably funny video starring a synthetic Dave
Right.
with a synthetic voiceover, synthetic music, and characters. And it's kind of a Renaissance festival, Monty Python-esque warrior story about Danger Coffee. And it's got a couple flaws, but it's so damn funny. And Dave says, I'm going to use this right now. And if I would have paid someone, I would have spent 50 grand.
Right.
And it would have taken a month.
Right.
So in a
Blew his
half an
mind.
hour, it was like, boom. So I think the short answer to your question is, you don't have to have all the skills. What you learn how to do is ask better questions. And now the AIs ask clarifying questions. So where is it now? We don't have these agents that can do all your work for you, but everyone can have amazing superpowers and be 10 times more effective and more brilliant than they already are.
Hey everybody, Adam here from the Podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by the team at Fountain. Fountain is your full-service frontline workforce management platform. I have to tell you, Fountain's offerings are some of the most robust I've seen for any product in the space. They offer full solutions for hiring, managing, and retention. They are truly a one-stop shop focused on the frontline workforce. They also create informative content using their data. For example, they analyze a bunch of data from their fast food chains and created a trend report you could download now on their website. They also have a new ebook out called Frontline Voices. There's a lot to dive into. Certainly check it out. And you could learn more at fountain.com, linked in the show notes. Thank you. I love that because I've been hammering this one. And my tagline is don't use it as a crutch. Don't use it as gospel. Don't use it. It's not gospel and it's not a crutch, right? You have to take it for what it is. And the same thing with data all the time. It's garbage in, garbage out. So if you're not prompting it the right way, don't take the result as gospel. Do not use AI as a crutch. Use it as a tool. And when it comes to content, the best way when people ask me, they go, what should I go? Just try it. Just mess around with it. Just get involved. Just fuck around, right? As I like to say, figure it out. Just get in and play with it. And I've been going through my own journey. I use different tech stack for my podcast. I use a different tech stack for recruiting. And I started using this new tech stack in the last week. Shout out to my good friends and partners over at Juicebox. But it's absolutely incredible from an industry perspective, the use of AI in recruiting, from sourcing, screening, and outreach. So what I tell people is,
I love it. How's it work?
Oh, we'll talk offline about that. But if I can take the parts of my job that could be automated to allow me more time to be human and increase efficiencies, that's how I'm going to scale the business. I could seriously right now scale myself from the ability where it used to take me, let's just call it 5 hours a day to work on one role. I could work on 10 roles in 5 hours because I have these automations running and they're creating these AI agents that could do sourcing, screening, and scheduling. Literally, while we're talking right now, I just got one right back. I sent it out to the universe. I reached out to the ideal candidate, and I'm starting to get outreach back. So there's ways to be smarter. And guess what? Here's the deal. AI is going to take your job. AI is going to enable somebody who knows how to use AI to take your job. So if you're not upskilling, if you're not embracing this tech right now, it's not going anywhere. It's been here for a while. And you're just going to be freaking phased out and extinct like the dinosaurs.
So one of the things that I do, I want to just accent and plus what you said and completely agree with you. So every time I ever make an AI presentation, I have this synthetic Samuel L. Jackson character that I create with his voice from
Jackson.
fiction. Yeah. And we always say, people say, well, how do you get good at AI? And I put up this screen that says FAFO on it. And Samuel L. Jackson comes on and says, what does FAFO mean? Fuck around and find out.
Exactly.
You're not going to lose a job to AI, but you will to someone using it. And that is precisely it. And just again, accent what else you said. What AI can do, used properly, is make smart people 100 times smarter and more human than you already are because you become a better communicator. However, it makes dumb people 100 times dumber, just like social media did and phones did too. All you got to do is stand in line and watch, baby.
Well, the simplest example of that, if we look at a platform like LinkedIn, there's two sides where people are looking really stupid on it, but you have to be careful about calling them stupid because maybe they're just trying to figure it out and they don't know how to finesse it. They will use certain tools for content, and again, they will take it as gospel. But what they're not doing, and I tell people, I throw a number out, I go, let AI get you 70% of the way there. And then you bring it home. You wordsmith it. You craft it in your own voice.
Exactly.
It's not there yet exactly with your own voice.
Yeah.
And the biggest takeaway from a tech standpoint was when you leave the freaking M dash in there. No one uses an M dash in any single normal language writing what you're doing. So take it to the next step. The other part where it gets complicated now in the world of recruiting, without going into too much down a rabbit hole, is job seekers over relying on it for applications and resume keyword versus job description matching. And the problem is, again, they're putting things in their resume that they may not be experienced or skilled at because it's in the job description. They go in for the interview, rubber hits the road, and then they're smoked out. So you have to be really careful, with the tools. What is an underrated AI tool or strategy that most entrepreneurs are sleeping on right now?
I think a tool that I use all the time is Chat Hub. Now, there's a variation of this tool called Poe, but the basic idea is you can run 6 AIs at the same time. So what I do whenever so here's the basic premise. At this moment, a tool like ChatGPT 401 has an IQ and a research capability, that of a PhD scientist, or at least student, right? And Perplexity is around in that area as well. And you look at all these AIs, but they're all a little different. They have different personalities. They have different specialties. And what I'll do is, instead of just running one prompt, I use Chat Hub and I run 6 at once. So it would be just like you could walk into a room and you'd have 6 geniuses and ask them all to work on the same problem completely separately. So you type in your prompt and you say, for example, here would be an example. If I took that prompt for that script, write a Harmon Brothers style script for Dave Asprey about Danger Coffee or whatever we wanted to do. Maybe we'd do it about Juicebox, your sponsor. And 6 of these things would go off and spin up and write a script in about 30 seconds. And then you look at each of the 6 and you decide which one you like, but there's a button on there that says synthesize all of these results. So the notion that in the same amount of time you can consult with one PhD quality researcher or creative, you can actually consult with 6, and then you can synthesize all the results. This is the ultimate Venn diagram in genius making.
I know.
And that is a non-obvious thing for most people.
You have to, and then once you have these tools, because the other problem that we're having right now is shiny object syndrome with a lot of folks and a lot of companies.
Oh, hell yeah.
Where it's a C-suite's like, oh, we need more AI, and then they task a team to go out and try the tools and buy them, and then they use them, but they don't implement them, they don't upskill, they don't train, they don't know how to use them. Like, for example, if you handed me a Ferrari right now, a manual Ferrari, I'd be like, wow, that's beautiful. I would have no fucking clue how to drive because I don't know how to drive manual car. But maybe what I'm going to do is go take a lesson. Maybe I'm going to go bring in a consultant who's going to teach me how to drive that car. That's the problem. That's a problem. All right, while we're talking on this, let's talk about the dark side real quick. What the hell is scaring you and keeping you up at night about AI?
Yeah. So I've got a 22-year-old, and I think most kids who are looking at this right now, I just heard this, that the average age of a home buyer now in the US is 56 years old.
Yeah, people are not buying homes.
That scares me. So I think the biggest thing is, where are the jobs going to be? And every time a new tool comes out, so many jobs are meaningless nothing jobs that AIs can do much better. And we have to remember it's a tool. So I'll frame this first by saying, back in the old timey days, people used to gin cotton, and they'd like pull strands, and then a cotton gin was made with a spinning wheel rather. And then that became mechanized and industrialized, and then we'd have weaving systems, and people who wove would be like, oh my God, they're taking my job. And someone really angry would go try to burn these things down. But historically speaking, anytime you ever bet against technology, you will lose. And technology becomes not only built into our society, on the whole, with almost no exceptions, the quality of life increases for everyone, and there is a disruption. Okay? Printing press did it. Books did it, so did Kindle, so did everything gets precisely. Whoever was cleaning up horse poop thought that the cars were coming along and taking their job. Well, in the meantime, people are dying of horse poop related diseases. So I think the thing that scares me is the speed by which this is happening and the speed that it's replacing and disrupting every level of work. And I don't think society or humanity is quite prepared to absorb it. It's going to be very painful for a while. And I think we run the risk of some severe class warfare beyond the political. So we've got weaponized communication and weaponized job loss on a massive scale. And that scares the hell out of me. So I love AI, and I look at it like you shouldn't give guns to toddlers.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't plan on going deep into this, but I do agree with you, and I've been thinking about that too. And when I kind of think about, also in the framework of conversations around DEI and B right now, and I think about one of the tenets of there is access to information, and I think that that's going to be a real divide between the classes. I think it's going to further divide the haves and the have-nots, and I think it's going to be based on information and technology, not necessarily always just weapons and money, right? Like, I think that AI is accessible. It is accessible to most, but you have to have access to knowledge and some of the computing tech around you. In the same breath, the amount of shit that I run on this phone alone on AI is mind-blowing. So maybe it is accessible to everybody, right? I think about this tool I just got called Super Whisper, these other things that I have right here that are game changers.
Yes. So I'll frame that through a lens, which is much like you, I'm sure. If all I had was my phone, I could generate $1 million in 60 days. Okay.
Yeah. Here's my phone. Mike, here's my phone. Go for it for me. Can you do that for me?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the point is, it is the ultimate communication device. And there's no excuse for you not to have a master's degree in anything you want to learn about, with the amount of, like, you can go to MIT for free now with all the content that's out there. And what do people do instead? They look at stupid videos on TikTok and Instagram.
Doom scroll.
So this is not a game of who has access. I absolutely reject that very notion, because everyone has access to a library and has for over 100 years. For hundreds of years, you could learn anything. It's that people choose convenience and laziness instead of excellence. And
simple choice.
And I don't think, like, there's a certain level of ignorance that's excusable, but stupid is not. Okay. Ugly can be fixed with surgery. Stupid is a behavior.
You can't fix stupid.
Yeah. And I don't want to be harsh, because if you're raised in poverty, more often than not, you think like a poor person, you act like a poor person, you have poor person habits. But there are many, many people who pull themselves out of poverty because they have a sudden notion of, like, I don't want that. That's the beauty of the United States of America and immigration, for example. Immigrants, first generation, despite the politicization, are not the ones causing problems in our country. Okay, historically and statistically speaking, they don't cause crimes.
They also built this country.
They buy into the vision and become Americans, which is an operating system of thinking and behaving. That's my opinion.
I don't disagree too far from it, and I've seen it firsthand. My wife my wife's an immigrant. She moved here, and we look at that immigrant mentality, and just hardworking. And they came here for the right reasons, because they wanted a better life for them and their family. And some of the hardest working people in this country, and they've had to uproot their lives. And my father-in-law came here, and he was successful back in the homeland, and had to come here and start as a plumber. And now 43 years later, dude's built developments and doing pretty well for himself, because it's a mindset.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's a hustle, right? That's the American dream, because they're living the American dream. That's why they came here. They fled, oppression. They fled communism, and socialism. They fled that because they wanted here, where it's a land of opportunity.
Yeah, and it's a bad operating system. Bad operating system for humans and for societies and governments. It sucks. It doesn't reward excellence.
All right, hot take, Mike. Elon Musk sitting next to the president right now tonight in the first cabinet meeting here. Yay or nay on Musk and his influence on this country right now?
I have to pre-frame this just a bit. I bought a Tesla Roadster. I got one of the first ones, and I've been driving Tesla since they came out. I think Elon Musk will be the first trillionaire because he thinks right. And a very good friend of mine is the launch director of SpaceX. And so I've had plenty of exposure, and I even did a documentary called Life with Tesla years ago. So I'm a big fan of Tesla and Elon Musk's brains. I think he's doing and saying stupid things that are dangerous. And, you know, when you're really, 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 really smart and ahead of everyone, wielding that kind of power and the speed that things are being done right now is extremely dangerous to a civilized society and a civilized world. So I am optimistic about tearing down bad bureaucracy that steals from its citizens. And I think taxation must be accountable. And the last time this country's had a full accounting and an audit is forever ago.
Yeah.
Now, the means and the way that they're going about it, I think could be catastrophic for innocent people who do the best they can. And I think the behaviors are unkind, and unkind behavior is un-American. How's that for an answer?
It's pretty much aligned to the way I'm thinking here. I'm aligned with the spirit of what they're doing. I think that when you look at it as a taxpayer, remove waste, bloating, fraud, all those things.
Yeah, don't steal my money.
Right? Like execution wise, listen, like it's they're going at it with a meat cleaver versus a scalpel. And he even said it, we're going to break things. It's not going to be 100% correct, but they need to move fast because for so long we've been moving so slow or nothing at all. And things are going to break. And maybe if there was a different face on this operation, wherever you stand politically, maybe if it wasn't Trump, maybe if it was somebody who was a little bit better with their words and their delivery, we'd be in a different place. But who wouldn't agree that government is bloated, that there is waste, there is fraud, there's incredible amount of debt, and we need to shape up. We are in a lot of debt in this country and a lot to blame for. It's scary.
That is absolutely true. So I want to remain cautiously optimistic, and I think we've got some dangerous brains with dangerous behaviors that, you know, like I love people. I don't like mobs. Mobs are dangerous. Gangs are dangerous. And there's a gang mentality and a gang behavior that is, I think, observably unkind.
Yeah, there's certain things happening there. So we're not going to go too far down that road, but there's certain signs politically. I want to bring the show back on track here. And let's just talk about personal brand. A big left turn here. We're gonna write it back. But that's what I like about having this show. You're somebody that I could tell from my research and from how the conversation is going that I wanted to ask that question to. I wanted to hear from you, Mike. I wanted to get that because I knew you would have a good fucking answer to it. And it would be informed and it would be as least biased as possible. And you came from a good place for that. So I want to talk about personal branding and influence. I don't like the term personal branding. I think it's like an advertising slogan. For me, the word is reputation, right? The word is reputation. What are people saying behind your back and not to your face? What are people saying when they think about you? What are people saying when they see your content out there? And you've built some, you know, your own personal brand and others with entrepreneurs out there. What mistakes are folks making right now? Because they see everybody doing it in two ways, right? You see the quote unquote influencers, the TikToks and the Instagram models and bottles and the G5s and the Ferraris and the bags of cash. A lot of that is smoke and mirrors too. And then you see other folks out there with the get rich quick schemes and everyone's a thought leader and everyone's an instant expert out there. But what's the real secret sauce, man?
Yeah, I think so. Think about what's the purpose, and it's trust. It's collapsing time. So what is the speed of trust you can operate at? And I think the biggest mistake is not paying attention to who your perfect audience is, also known as your ICP, your ideal customer profile. And to me, it's spending a lot of time in an empathic state. So the greatest marketers I've ever met are massive empaths, and they know how to listen and say if their primary question becomes, how can I create massive value in the hearts and minds and behaviors of my perfect audience? Who do I want to be a hero to? And then build a real hero character that is authentic and speaks in your voice that provides that value. And that's what a great brand really is, like, what do they trust? What do they believe? And what do they need to believe about their better future self? And if they can see that through you, it's never about you. And that's my issue with personal brands. It's a selfish act. Oftentimes it's not done out of true character and love and behavior and intent.
I want everyone to rewind, go back about 68 seconds on that one. Listen to what Mike just said there. Spot on. Well, as we bring it home here, a couple things I want to talk about here. And what has been that biggest mindset shift for you in the last few years? That's really been the unlock at this stage, 58 years old.
Mm-hmm.
We're always growing. Either you're learning or you're earning, man.
Well, I'm going to answer in the most heartfelt, real way I possibly can, which is I just buried my parents over the past 2 years. I got clean with them before they passed. And so nothing was left unspoken, unsaid, or undone. And that gives me an enormous amount of peace because I think I've been able to live that in front of my own son. So living a life of no regrets with regards to that helps a lot. On a professional level, I think the best thing I ever do is I act as though I'm putting my reputation on the line every time I create a new business or a brand with someone else. I stake my own future and my reputation on the results I provide someone else, which means I show up 110% and I listen and I acquire the capabilities and skills to stack more value.
Love that. You've met and worked with some of the most influential entrepreneurs. Who affected you the most? Who was it that left such an impression on you and really shaped?
Yeah, I'd say the first one was when I had my first business, Digital Cafe, and things were really in the dumps. I'd gone through a divorce. We were like $250,000 in the hole. I was living on a gas card, a Super America gas card in St. Paul, Minnesota, eating cheese and crackers. Like I had no idea what was going to happen. It was like bankruptcy or balls out. And I watched a friend go to a Tony Robbins event and come back and over 6 months completely reinvent himself and his life. And I ended up doing the same thing. So the answer is Tony Robbins was one of the biggest influences. Deepak Chopra and Wayne Dyer were two others. And present day, I've been in strategic coach now for over a decade. I do a podcast with Dan Sullivan, and he's been a spectacular influence, one of the greatest minds. He's 80 years old and still is as hungry as most 20-year-olds, except he's wise.
Big difference there. That's incredible. So what's next for you? Give us some alpha here. What are you working on?
Right now, my business is split in two chunks. One of them is the AI accelerator. So we're going to start doing AI masterminds that are quarterly. I put founders in a room, and I've been teaching and training on stage. We do courses and training online, but nothing beats pressing the flesh and creating real results and creating community. So that's happening right now. And then bigger whales. One of my clients has developed an active immunotherapy medicine that can prevent Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and HIV. They're the real deal.
Future is now.
Yeah. So I'd say I love working with founders and collaborating. I don't do this stuff because I need it for me. I don't like lonely places and islands. I love to collaborate. So people with big visions that we can multiply their vision and make their reality really, really fast. I find that spectacular. So, why go across the street when you can go to Mars?
Let's bring it home here. I mean, I could literally have a Joe Rogan 4-hour podcast with you, but that's not the show.
You're a great interviewer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That is the greatest compliment, and I appreciate it because I work on my craft, and I found my art, man. I found my art. Like
I see it.
Can't sing, can't dance. I can try to dance, can try to sing a little bit, but this is what I love to do. And if you told me, there's a way, and I'm getting there of making this a full-time business, and that's that. But let me ask you this, Mike.
Yeah.
These are tough ones coming home. What is that single greatest piece of advice that you ever received that you take action on every day? It could be a mantra, it could be something said to you, a slogan. What is it?
Listen deeply. I really am working hard on listening deeply and feeling into the words and seeing someone's better future for themselves that they can't see for themselves and articulating that back to them.
That is a superpower.
Mm.
The most influential people in my life, despite levels of financial success, are the ones that truly listen. My closest friends are the ones that truly listen. And I am with you where I have worked hard to be a better active listener. Because that's how you could really provide value to somebody, right? And listening on different levels, professionally and personally too. And being able to be empathetic with somebody, but being at a level just above where they are. Because if you come down to their level, you're just the same as them, but you need to be at a level where you could help them. And I think that's something really important to think about, and something, it's almost like empathetic agility, right? Emotional agility, the ability to kind of maneuver within that. So I absolutely love it. Last but not least, Mike Koenigs, you have reached incredible levels of success by traditional standards, right? But everyone's standard is different. Everyone's definition of success is different. Mike Koenigs, how do you define success?
I've entered in, this is my 24th year. I've been married to my wife, Vivian Glick. She's worth looking up, by the way. She's run a humanitarian organization for 20 years and just got back from India. She's been working on the ground in Uganda and India for 20 years, working with young people. And I have a better marriage now than I ever have. And my son loves me, and I'm healthy, after dealing with cancer. And that old saying, it's so cliche, a man with a thousand, or whatever, a man with a dream has 1,000, something, about 1,000 dreams. A man who doesn't have his health has but one. Whatever the hell that saying is. But I really focus on my body and staying healthy. And I work really hard on my marriage and my relationship with my son. And I'm financially in a great position, and I'm really good at earning and providing value. Like, that's great. But the honest to God truth is, every day is a new kind of struggle, because what got me here ain't going to get me to there. And I think the true answer, as I listen to myself right now, is humility. I'm humble enough to say I don't know, and I don't have the answer, and I'm getting better at asking for help. So I think it's a combination of whatever that synthesis would be, but humility comes to mind, and intimacy with those who matter most.
I love it. Life is short. Close your circle. Remove negative energies in your life. Focus on what's important. That's what it's all about. Mike Koenigs, this has been a fantastic conversation. Love to continue it. Maybe have you back on later this year for a part 2. Lots to continue. Everyone out there, if you want to discover how to 10x your productivity and clone your top employees and monetize your IP with AI, visit AIaccelerator.com. Oh, I need my music. It sounds cooler when I do this with music, right? It kind of wraps up. Show us the books. What do we got there?
Thank you. Oh, yeah. You can get AI Accelerator free. Just go to AIaccelerator.com/free. You'll get that book. And then there's your next act. Look it up. Great book about creating your next act. Thank you, Adam. Good job.
Yeah, and if you're a founder or an entrepreneur who's exited their business and now driven to impact and legacy, if you want to reinvent, grow, and upgrade your business with better offers, better customers, please visit superpoweraccelerator.com to discover the Vision Day experience with Mike and launch your next act today. We're going to link it all up in the show notes. Mike, I want to thank you. Hang with me for one moment here as we wrap up, folks. If this show resonated with you, leave a review rating. It goes a long way. You know where to find out more at thepodcast.com. Guys, hit me up on email what you think of this episode, adam@nhptalentgroup.com. I want to hear from you guys. Remember, be good to yourself, be better to others, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.